Congress has released the tax returns. That's right. They're out there in the open and you can go and see them. So, if you want to go in there, the big question that I have for all of this is, and I want to ask one of these people that are celebrating the fact that this has been released. Can you show me what line on the tax returns that the tax fraud is listed on? Because I'm dying to know. I want to see it. I want to know what it is that you know about these things and show me exactly where the fraud is. But for the most part, they're just going to wait for CNN to tell them. But we'll talk about that and the violations of the 4th, 5th, and 14th and what that means from there. In other news, the GOP is dragged for posting a limited government tweet right before Republicans go to make a law requiring teachers to get parents' permissions to use a student's preferred pronoun. But we'll talk about that, what's going on with that, and where we go. Mayor Pete is angry. He put his angry eyes in to go talk about, or give a stern talking to American Airlines. So we'll go over what's going on with that, where we go from there, and what that means. And a Democrat has come out and decided that he is going to launch the Santos Act. And yes, he made a good acronym for that. The only problem with this act is because of what it suggests, including making sure that people can't lie to get onto Congress. I'm going to say that Mayor Pete, Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris, and a number of others, possibly AOC even, should go get lawyers to make sure that they can maintain their seats. It is going to be all of this and more. Happy New Year, everybody. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good evening and welcome to your evening news. My name is Jay Edgar and we have got a ton of stuff to go over here today. We actually did wind up filling out the last show of the year. That is right. Tomorrow is New Year's Eve, but we will not be streaming on Saturday because it is a Saturday. And we will be coming back and joining out in the new year on Monday, talking about a new set of topics here. So definitely come back in, get some of your last minute chats in here. Oh, it looks like Grant is already starting to go out and get spicy here. But yeah, don't forget, we're reading live chat at the end of the show too, and I've got the names of everybody. And it's getting to be an abbreviated list, I understand, because we are in a time slot where we're competing against other people. But tell some friends, get some more in here, and see if we can't fill this list out. I will be reading from this list and saying hello and thank you to everybody who chatted in the live chat throughout the week. And we will be looking into some of your live chats as well tonight. So we've got we're going to try to power through it. It looks like everything is holding steady right now, but we had another little internet hiccup where I actually disconnected a few times after we started. So if you start to see the spinning wheel of death for an extended period of time, bear with me. We're trying to get through here. This is not my equipment outside of the modem that's sitting over there and the computer that's sitting here. So everything else belongs to Spectrum, and let's make sure that they're coming out and giving us their best as well. But yes, get on in here. And Grant says, yeah, today he reads the chats right at the end. So I want to see that. Get some of the real off hours people in here. See how spicy we can get the chat going. I've seen what you guys do in the middle of the chat. There's some stuff because we are trying to stay with a AM radio level of spice on the air so we can let parents be in here with their kids. There's some stuff that I'm not going to read at the end, but I'll get to as much as I can, and if I've got a code word around it, I will do that as well. But that'll be off to the end of the show. We're going to be talking about the Dow, the markets, and how bad they wound up for the year. We're going to be talking about the tax returns. We'll be talking about Mayor Pete, and he's got the angry eyes, the Santos Act, which is probably going to screw a lot of Democratic politicians out of their offices. It's going to be a good wrap up to the year. The news slate that was given to me today, it's a little bit shorter than we usually do, but it's a good one. We've got some good stuff here over on Contemporary. Before we get started, make sure you guys go check out great programming such as The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, The Outrated Conservative, The Porch Boys. Go check out Tweets by Brit, Mr. Behavior, and the No Gimmicks podcast as we come together to form a coalition to try to bring you a news and culture experience from the common man for the common man. That is right. We are attempting to build a better internet news experience instead of getting your news from people who wear a suit that costs more than your house, or people who wear a certain funny kind of hat and talk really fast and still try to convince you that he's one of you. Instead of getting your news from those people, try to give some of the people I've mentioned a try. It's not all news. Sometimes it's culture, sometimes it's memes, but it's always good fun. And these people, a lot of times, are just like you. So go check out all that great programming as we try to bring you a news experience from the common man for the common man. And with that, from the common man for the common man, we are going to start tonight looking in at the Dow. Let's have a look and see what that looks like here. All right, on the Dow. 33, 147.25 to end the year. That is after taking a massive dump in the stocks throughout the rest of the year. It tried to claw its way back for the final trading session of the year, but it just could not bring it back up to where it was before. So, ending the year at 33, 147.25 and 73.55 down on the previous trading day. But since we have all the data in for the year to date is also not good news coming out of the Dow. We've been looking at a little bit of this since a little bit before Christmas, just looking at where it was and seeing some of the tumultuous things in a year that's pretty much been down the entire year. It's been in the red. I don't think it crested where it was in the beginning of January, on January 4th. That seems to be the top of where it was, and it just fell out after that. The Dow ending the year 3,437.81 points down, or almost 10% down. Getting well below 10% down at 1.2, our lowest, if we look at our 52-week low, high, etc. Opening the year to date, at 33,121.61. This is local. The high, 33,152.55. The low was 32,847. That's on the day. But if we look at the 52 weeks high and low, 36,952.65 points. To 28,660.94, which means that the Dow at one point lost over 8,000 points, almost 9,000 points. It's brought some of it back, but it's still it can't even crest where the middle was anymore, about the middle of the year. So, for those of you who had money in stocks, 401k, etc., you're not doing so good right now. Now, what this means going forward, and I will give a little bit of good news. We're coming to that point, especially with the inflated dollars, that we're getting to the point where the Dow doesn't have much of a place to go except for up. Its floor, I think, is going to be in the mid-20,000s at this point, possibly 25,000, as I think the lowest it can ever go again, because the dollar got so inflated. And that's going to be about the time that investors are jumping out the window. So you're getting to a point where you're going to be safe going forward. And I think some more people are going to invest in 2023, especially if the House gets the purse strings. Now, of course, remember, we've spent $1.7 trillion to get us all the way to September. But what happens after September going to an election year is anybody's guess. But I do think that we have a modicum of stability coming in for 2023. So we'll see what happens. It's all up in the air. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't practice any Santeria. I can't tell you what's going to happen. But we will see where it goes and what happens with that. Looking at your Bitcoin, which we will do the same statistics to. Bitcoin is at 16,605.30 US dollars. That is down 28 US dollars and 30 US cents on the day. Of course, you can see where it dipped much further than that throughout the day, but recovered itself back up to bring itself basically steady in line with what it was yesterday. Let's bring this back out to the year to the date though, and that's going to be a little depressing, especially if you are an avid or even amateur enthusiast of cryptocurrency. Bitcoin starting the year at just shy of 50,000. Not the 68,000 we've seen in recent peaks, but 47,733.40 is where it started on January 1st. Holding somewhat steady throughout the beginning of the year, and then the bottom continuing to drop out as more and more bad policies come through. And we see significant drops. Not just little steps and drops, but just day to day, significant dumps back out to bring us back below the 20,000 mark, and then another one to bring us back down to almost the 16,000 mark as well. So again, I always say crypto is not something that should be the answer to everything. It's not something that you should bet your life on, take a mortgage out, sell your house for, anything like that. But it's one of those things where a lot of people will take a $20 bill, a $100 bill that they have extra, and throw it in there to see what kind of money they can make back out of it. That is, by the way, the vast majority of the crypto traders that are out there. But then when it comes time where they're in dire straits and they need food, gas, diapers for the kids, Christmas toys, etc., it's one of the first things to go because it's one of the more liquid assets out there. It's very easy to take it and trade it back into cash. I mean, if you still use PayPal for whatever reason and Coinbase together, you can take a tenth of a Bitcoin and have $3,000. Well, not anymore, but $1,600 tomorrow in your hand, in your bank account, ready to go. So that's one of the first things that get traded out. Otherwise, you got to call your stockbroker, wait for that to all go through, wait for Robinhood to make through this, and make sure that you're doing it in a trading time. And with Coinbase too, you can do it 24 hours a day. But yeah, just starting to see where people are especially taking significant cuts to their pay or losing everything. And you can see it in steps going through the market. So that's what we see coming for that. Let's look at the gas prices. That we're not going to put on a chart, but the gas prices in the Madison, Wisconsin area, something we've been watching over and over again. And by the way, people are anticipating the gas prices going up. There was a line out to the road at the local Quick Trip last night, or earlier when I went over there. And I just needed to get something to mix with some vodka for New Year's. But yeah, there were lines out to the road. People are anticipating this is going to go up again after the new year. But right now, the Quick Trip is at $3.10 going into the Isthmus. The Amoco on the Isthmus is at $2.96. On the west side, the Quick Trip is at $3.10. The Speedway is at $2.90. The BP has jumped up over $3, leaving Madison on the north side. The Quick Trip on the north side still at $3.10. The BP leaving on the east side is at $2.99, which is still holding steady. So we've got the one that was still at $2.76 is now up to $2.88, but we'll see how much faster that jumps back up as well as we will go back into the new year, looking at the same map, the same stations, and seeing what this does. Let's grab one from Investors Business Daily. Stock Market 2023, what to do after a stay away year, Tesla, NIO, BYD deliveries due. From Ed Carson. Dow futures will open on Monday evening along with the S&P and the NASDAQ futures. Tesla and China EV makers such as NIO, Li Auto, and BYD will report year-end and 2022 deliveries over the New Year's holiday weekend. Investors will be looking for a brighter stock market in 2023 after a stay-away year, especially for growth. The Dow, the S&P, and the NASDAQ all had their biggest annual declines in 14 years. A stock market rally attempt is underway, but has a long way to go to prove itself. The Dow dipped below its 50-day line and its moving average on Friday. The S&P and especially the NASDAQ have some distance to go in their 50-day lines, with several other key resistance areas along the way. Celsius Holdings, Deere, BioMarin Pharmaceutical, ExxonMobil, and MedPace are 5 stocks near buy points. It's a diverse list reflecting possible areas of market leadership in the new year. Deere and Medpace are on the IBD leaderboard. Celsius, Medpace are on the IBD 50. Deere and BioMarin Pharmaceutical are on the IBD Big Cap 20. John Deere was Friday's IBD stock of the day. But whether or not these stocks work depends on the market trending higher. Right now, it's not. Investors should be very cautious. On the EV deliveries, NIO, Li Auto, and XPeng are on tap to report December fourth quarter and full year EV deliveries on Sunday, January 1st. Li Auto on Friday and it said December deliveries of its hybrid SUVs would top 20,000, crushing November's record 15,034. NIO recently lowered its quarter 4 delivery guidance, citing Pinko Pox related issues. The guidance implied December deliveries of 14,263 to 15,263 EVs, which would slightly top November's record 14,178. XPeng should see deliveries rise after several month-to-month declines, but its model lineup is struggling. BYD will likely report its December sales on January 3rd before the U.S. market opened on Tuesday. The EV and battery giant recently stated that the Pinko Pox infections among workers was reducing production by at least 2,000 vehicles per day. Full-year deliveries of all-electric BEVs and plug-in hybrids should be around 1.88 million. BYD recently said that implies December deliveries around 247,000 to 250,000, which would still be a record. NIO, Li Auto, XPeng, and BYD all had tough 2022 like other EV makers and growth stocks. They all bottomed in October or early November, but have pulled back in recent weeks. Alright, on the futures, Dow futures open at 6 p.m. Eastern Time on Monday. That's right, they will be closed in observance of the holiday for this coming Monday, but the futures will start up at that time. U.S. stock and bond markets will be closed Monday, January 2nd in observance of New Year's. On Tuesday, investors will get the December ISM Manufacturing Index on Friday. The December jobs report looms large as Federal Reserve looks for signs of a weakening job market. That's right, they don't want you to be out there making money. They want the government to be able to spend money, but they don't want you to make any. And remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. Alright, and I do have one from CNBC. This is a live ticker, but I wanted to focus on this part. Stocks fall to end Wall Street's worst year since 2008. S&P finishes 2022 down nearly 20%. From Jesse Pound and Samantha Subin. Stocks slipped on Friday to end a brutal 2022 with a whimper, as Wall Street wrapped up its worst year since 2008 on a sour note. The Dow slid 73.5 points, or 0.22%, to close at 33,147.25. The S&P shed 0.25% to end at 38,39.50. The Nasdaq ticked down 0.11 to 10,466.88. Friday marked the final day of trading in what has been a painful year for stocks. All three of the major averages suffered their worst year since 2008 and snapped a 3-year win streak. The Dow fared the best of the indices in 2022, down about 8.8%. The S&P sank 19.4% and is more than 20% below its record high, while the tech-heavy Nasdaq tumbled 33.1%. Oof. That's tough, because a lot of people after the dot-com boom decided the Nasdaq was going to be the index that they were going to follow the most on their retirement funds. That's rough. That's a rough one to see. Sticky inflation and aggressive rate hikes from the Federal Reserve battered growth in technology stocks and weighed on investor sentiment throughout the year. Geopolitical concerns and volatile economic data also kept markets on edge. We've had everything from the Pinko Pox problems in China to the invasion of Ukraine. They've all been very serious, Hong Kong, but for investors, it is what the Fed is doing, said Art Cashin, Director of Floor Operations for UBS on CNBC's The Exchange. As the calendar turns to a new year, some investors think the pain is far from over. They expect the bear market to persist until a recession hits or the Fed pivots. Some also project stocks will hit new lows before rebounding on the second half of 2023. I think the low, I do think they're right, but I don't think it's going to be as low as they say it's going to be. I think, again, that 25,000 is going to be the floor. But I think it's going to be more painful for those of us on the ground, not Wall Street investors. as the investment dollars dry up and people aren't able to invest in startups, small businesses, or anything else to that matter. As they sit back and hold on to cash and tell the business leaders who want to go back and hire, you're on your own, kid. Sorry. So it's going to be a weird year. I know that. And again, I can't tell you what's going to happen, but it's going to be a weird year, definitely. All right, that's what we have in the markets. Let's talk the tax returns. Starting with the Associated Press. Trump's tax returns released after long fights with Congress. From Michael R. Sisak and Jill Colvin. And again, I want to know. Tell me, you guys, what line exactly is when you file your taxes, what line do you file tax fraud on? Where does that go? Explain that to me. Democrats in Congress released thousands of pages of former President Trump's tax returns on Friday, providing the most detailed picture to date of his finances over a 6-year period, including his time in the White House, when he fought to keep the information private in a break with decades of precedent. Mostly because they can't require him to do it. The documents include the individual returns from Trump and his wife Melania, along with Trump's business entities from 2015 to 2020. They show how Trump used the tax code to lower his tax obligations and reveal details about foreign accounts, charitable contributions, and the performance of some of its highest profile business ventures, which had largely remained shielded from public scrutiny. And by the way, all of this is highly illegal, just so you know. The disclosure marks the culmination of a years-long legal fight that has played out everywhere from the presidential campaign of Congress to the Supreme Court, as Trump persistently rejected efforts to share details about his financial history, counter to the practice of transparency followed by all of his predecessors in the post-Watergate era. The record's release comes just days before Republicans retake control of the House and weeks after Trump began another campaign for the White House. Now, something like this is arguably against the 4th and 14th Amendments, equal protection and the right to privacy, and of course unlawful search and seizure. But this also may be, especially when it comes to the fact that they were trying to force him to come back out and reveal them himself, and once they found out that he wouldn't do that, now they're going to come back out and put this. This may be a violation of the 5th Amendment. The protection from the government forcing you to bear witness against yourself. And if they do it to him, they can do it to you, just so you know. The records show how Trump limited his tax liability by offsetting his income against corporate losses, as well as millions of dollars in business expenses, asset depreciation, and other deductions. Oh, you mean like every other business leader does? While Trump paid $641,931 in federal income tax in 2015, the year he began his campaign for president, he paid just $750 in 2016 and 2017, according to a report released last week by Congress's nonpartisan Joint Committee on Taxation. He paid nearly $1 million in 2018, but only $133,445 in 2019 and nothing in 2020, the year he unsuccessfully sought re-election. And the year most of his businesses lost everything. The records also detail Trump's foreign holdings. Trump, according to the filings, reported having bank accounts in China, Ireland, and the UK in 2015 through 2017. Right, because he has hotels in China, Ireland, and the UK in 2015 through 2017. Starting in 2018, however, he only reported an account in the UK. The Returns also show that Trump claimed foreign tax credits for taxes he paid on various business ventures around the world, including licensing arrangements for the use of his name on development projects and his golf courses in Scotland and Ireland. In several years, Trump appears to have paid more in foreign taxes than he did in net U.S. federal income taxes. Surprise, surprise, most of these countries have higher individual tax rates and fewer loopholes. With income reported in countries including Azerbaijan, China, India, Indonesia, Panama, the Philippines, St. Martin, Turkey, and the United Arab Emirates. Once again, all countries that house a Trump hotel. It's weird how that works. The documents show Trump's charitable donations fluctuated during his presidency, but in his final years represented only a sliver of his income. In 2020, the year the pinko pox ravaged the economy, Trump reported no charitable donations at all. In 2019 and 2018, he reported writing checks for about $500,000 in donations. In earlier years, the number was higher, $1.8 million in 2017, $1.1 million in 2016. It's unclear whether the reported sums include Trump's $400,000 annual presidential salary, which he had said he would forego and claimed he donated to various federal departments. Jeff Hoops, an accounting professor at the University of North Carolina's Kenan-Flagler Business School, described Trump's taxes as a large and complicated return with a business that is set up to be complicated, with hundreds of entities scattered all over the globe. Right, he's a global real estate mogul. Of course he has holdings in other countries. He noted that many of those entities are slightly unprofitable, which he described as pretty magical as far as the tax code. It's hard to know if someone's really bad at business or really good at tax planning because they both look like the same thing, he said. Daniel Shabiro, a taxation professor at New York University, cited the large financial losses from so many of Trump's businesses, despite their often healthy sales, as something that should raise suspicion from auditors. If he wasn't a political figure, but he was, say, a prominent businessman, you'd really want to audit the heck out of him, Shabiro said. There's fishy-looking stuff here. Shabiro also cited examples of suspicious or sloppy math, even in smaller businesses such as aviation firm dubbed DT Endeavor 1 LLC, which in 2020 reported both sales and expenses of $160,000 and $144,000. Such exact matches are unusual, Shabiro said, yet the firm also reported an $18,923 loss. The return doesn't say, guess what, I'm committing fraud, Shabiro said, but there are red flags. The release marks the latest setback for Trump, who has been mired in investigations, including federal and state inquiries, into the efforts to overturn the 2020 elections, which he did not try to overturn. The Department of Justice has also been investigating reams of classified documents. They're not reams of classified documents. There are not 500 sheets of classified documents. They spread them all out in an image, and we still don't know if all those are classified. There were 20. That's not reams. Found at his Mar-a-Lago club and possible efforts to obstruct the investigation. In a statement Friday, Trump lashed out at Democrats in the Supreme Court for the release. And we'll talk about that separately, but yeah, that's, first off, the editorialization at the Associated Press is already coming out here and saying this, but a big part of this, and now that it's out here, I do want to see the tax returns of other major billionaires to see if they're using the same deductions, especially the ones they lobbied Congress for, so they could keep more of their money and take the deductions over and over again. But first and foremost, any deduction that's out there, you're going to take. There are very few people out there who come back out and say, I want to pay more taxes. They typically go to their accountants or in the case of a billionaire, their armies of accountants, and tell them on January 1st, okay, make that number as small as humanly possible. The same thing you say when you go to your tax planner. And by the way, the same thing our progressive friends say every time they go to their tax accountant as well. I can't afford a big bill here. Make this number as small as possible. But for the most part, for them, it's just like, oh, give me a big refund, please. But it goes to the same thing. They don't understand it goes to the same thing, but it goes to the same thing. Make that pay-in amount as small as possible. I got to remodel my kitchen. I need a big tax return. From the USA Today, and this I took because I wanted to make sure that this is in here. We actually have the list of every page in here. If anybody wants to go through all of this, the the USA Today linked all of it in PDF form. You could go through and analyze, and there are thousands of pages here to be analyzed. You can see it all. But you can also see the nice little summaries that congressional staff members summarize, which boils down to, the orange man is bad, he didn't pay enough in taxes, and he's evil. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to drop this into the Discord right away. No, not that. That's not what I want. I want... Come on, I want this. So there you go. In general, if you want to see all the PDFs, they're all there. And I'd like to see if some of you can actually show me what line the fraud is listed on. Like seriously, what line do you go in there and say, okay, Mr. President, I have to list, how much do you want me to list in fraud? Do you want me to list 2 million in fraud this year? Or... And I do honestly solemnly believe that some of these people believe that's there. All right, what else do we have? From CBS, here's what tax pros are looking for in Donald Trump's returns. Trump's tax returns, long the subject of speculation, as well as a 3-year legal fight, are now in the public eye for anyone to review after last week releasing a summary of the IRS's efforts to audit the former president, along with the details of his income in recent years. The House Ways and Means Committee early Friday released the redacted version of 6 years' worth of his returns. Whether Americans learn much from the reams of information, and by the way, this is actual reams of information released today, is another matter. As with many ultra-wealthy individuals, Trump's finances are dauntingly complex. Indeed, the IRS itself has previously remarked on the difficulty of examining the every entity from which he has drawn income over the years. Which is, by the way, an excuse for saying, okay, we're releasing the records, but don't try to read them. We'll explain to you why he's evil for you. Here are some of the areas tax professionals say they're focusing on. What do the returns actually show about his finances? Surprisingly little, actually. This could be hard to assess given Trump's sprawling business empire. The former president is financially linked to more than 400 separate entities, including trusts, LLCs, and partnerships, according to House researchers. Of these, however, just 7 were examined by the Ways and Means Committee report earlier this month. Although the returns are being disclosed Friday will likely name these entities and list an income or loss for each one, additional details will likely be limited, experts say. We're not going to know what those entities are doing, Bruce Dubinsky, a forensic accountant and founder of Dubinsky Consulting, says. You're just going to see a line and an amount. It could be an income, could be a loss for that year. We would then need those LLC or S Corps returns to see, okay, what's going on. And whether or not you can actually get a hold of those LLCs or S Corps is dubious. Such a large number of entities make it more likely that some sources of Trump's income, losses, or wealth could be left out, Offering a misleading picture of his tax status, the IRS has highlighted the complexity of performing a comprehensive exam of Trump's income and tax liability. With over 400 flow-through returns reported on Form 1040, it is not possible to obtain the resources available to examine all potential issues, states an IRS memo cited in the Ways and Means report. Like all of the tax pros interviewed for this story, Dubinsky noted that he has no specific insight into Trump's returns and made his assessment based strictly on his knowledge of the tax code and published excerpts of Trump's finances. Long story short, they don't know. How much money did Trump make from being famous? The report from the Joint Committee on Taxation said Trump paid no federal income tax in 2020. The final year of his presidency, the former president paid a net of only $750 in income taxes in 2017. He paid $1.1 million in net federal income taxes combined in 2018 and 2019. Although Trump early in his career made money chiefly from his family's real estate empire, in time he capitalized on his celebrity to generate more income, making hundreds of millions from the best-selling Art of the Deal and other books, as well as the NBC television hit The Apprentice. I'm going to look at the Schedule Cs. I want to see if there's anything from publishing, book deals, that sort of stuff, Dubinsky said. Was he getting royalties on The Apprentice? Probably. If so, there might be royalties that come in and are reported on the return. According to the New York Times, a former newspaper, The Apprentice alone earned Trump $200 million between 2005 and 2018. That seems light, actually. If he kept earning royalties while in office, he wouldn't be the first. Former President Barack Obama also benefited from publishing, although on a much smaller scale. While he was in office, Obama earned twice as much from book royalties as from his presidential salary, Forbes has calculated. Dubinsky noted it's hard to tell just looking at tax returns how successful somebody is. There might be 3 ventures that are very successful, and there might be a venture that's not so successful. Which is, by the way, what I've been trying to tell people when they yell about the tax returns since 2015. You're not going to see, it's not going to go on there and say, the line 52 is not going to say rich or poor. He added, but I think on par when you look at everything in the tax return in total, I think it does paint a picture of a very complicated business venture system that Trump was running. How charitable is Trump? The charitable activities of the businessman turned president are sure to garner considerable interest, said E. Martin Davidoff, the founder and managing partner of Davidoff Tax Law. I might look at his personal returns just out of curiosity. I've never seen the tax returns of a billionaire, Davidoff said. What does he deduct? How much is he giving to charity? That would be an interesting thing because that could be a very big deduction. Davidoff expects to see some limited information on the types of charitable contributions. You'll know whether it's cash or property because there are 2 separate forms for doing that and 2 separate items for Schedule E, he said. If he gave away appreciated stock, he gave away real estate, that'll be listed out. That's required in the detail. In the final year of his presidency, Trump reported making no charitable donations. The tax returns show that contrasted with prior 2 years where he reported making $500,000 worth of donations. It's unclear whether any of the figures included his pledge to donate his $400,000 presidential salary back to the U.S. government. He reported donating $1.1 million in 2016 and $1.8 million in 2017. How lucrative is it to be a real estate developer? Very, by the way. Previously published excerpts of Trump's returns have focused on years in which he reported large financial losses. In the 80s and 90s, the Times concluded, Trump appears to have lost more money than nearly any other individual American taxpayer. Trump's longtime accountant also recently testified at the Trump Organization's recent criminal trial that the developer reported losses on his tax returns every year for a decade, including nearly $700 million in 2009 and $200 million in 2010. Many have questioned the fairness of a self-proclaimed billionaire being allowed to avoid income tax liability, with one columnist calling it a national disgrace. But tax pros underline that this reflects the questions about the tax code, which offers a range of ways for wealthy Americans, including real estate moguls, to legally shelter their income. The obvious question is, how does a guy pay such a small amount in taxes when he's so wealthy? By design, real estate shelters income, Davidoff says. That's actually very fair. If I have real estate and there's positive cash flow, the depreciation on the real estate shelters some of that income, he said. The obvious question people will have is, why is the amount he is paying so low? That's the tax laws, which are made by people who take donations from billionaires to keep the tax laws low. For example, depreciation is an artificial calculation designed to account for the fact that assets, like buildings, lose value over time. Dubinsky illustrated it with an example of a developer who builds a project worth $50 million and, as is common, puts up $1 million of his own money for the project while borrowing the rest. When you have a professional tax preparer, as Trump did, you can take advantage of those tax code sections and loopholes. If you call them loopholes, they're legal, Dubinsky said. And there's evidence in his returns that he took a lot of appreciation deductions in his real estate ventures and continued to generate those deductions, and that offsets other income, and that's totally legal to do. So there is that, but there are other aspects to this that I know that CBS is not going over for specific reasons, because they do want their gullible audience to remember, and it's kind of what Grant pointed out as well, that income does not equal wealth. And really the only way that your wealth affects what goes on your tax return, your income, etc., the only time that really affects that is if you sell something off and liquidate it for cash. Let's see if I can use a real world example for something that some of us would probably maybe even understand. So, say I go out and buy my dream house, or not even my dream house, just a little shack out there. And 2 years down the road, Turns of Pages takes off. You guys make donations. I can quit my job and go buy my dream property, my dream home on 100 acres. Far away from anybody else, where I can sit and make liquor all the time. Which, by the way, that is one of the things that I want to do in either retirement or still in working time, is start a distillery of my own. That's what I want to do when I grow up. J. Edgar Liquor. Although I can't do scotch, because you can't actually call it scotch unless it's actually literally made in the Scottish Highlands. Holy crap, those guys are still alive? I didn't know Brooks and Dunn were still alive. But I keep my little shack and rent it out for 3 years or so. And then after 3 years, my tenant moves out. I don't want to market it to make another tenant, and I'm spending so much time both doing contemporary and distilling liquor that I no longer have time to go make repairs or market or try to get somebody else in the building, and I sell that building. That is income for me at that point, and I have to pay the capital gains on that. I have to pay income tax on liquidating it, because I'm keeping this cash. I'm not going and turning around and buying another property with it. So I'm keeping it as liquid asset, as liquid capital, so I got to pay for that. And then yes, whatever the appreciation is on it as well over the years. But as long as I keep that house, any appreciation it has goes into my wealth, into my net worth. That's the simplest way to put it down. Now, take that and amplify that by 1,000 times. And it's again too, with Bezos. Bezos is a good example of that, because we actually had the controversy and we had the conversation about what happened with him. Now, Bezos is a billionaire. He's a very wealthy man, and all of his assets, all of his cash, everything else, is tied up in Amazon buildings, in his own personal property, yachts, appreciable interest, assets, etc. But honestly, for Bezos, and I do applaud him for this, the vast majority of what he has is in Amazon. Like, he does improve his buildings and tries to go back out and expand the Amazon empire. He doesn't put as much into personal property, personal wealth, etc., like people like Gates do. But he does pay himself an actual middle-class salary, like his income, and he pays himself off of that, is, I think it's probably gone up for inflation now, but I know at one point it was like 60 grand. A middle class, a little bit higher than a middle class income. It was all that he paid himself and all that he got taxed on. And that was his income. But that's what we have for that. Let's grab one. CNN has their key takeaways. But it looks like, oh, they're going to talk about the legal things. No, actually, a lot of this looks like the same stuff that was in the, what was the other article we looked at? The earlier one. So I'm actually going to skip over this one. Of course, the big story of everything here. Trump's tax returns released by House committee shows he paid little in taxes. From Derek Gregorian, Lauren Strickler, and Ryan Nobles. A House committee on Friday made public 6 years of former President Trump's tax returns, which showed he paid relatively little in federal taxes in the years before and during his presidency. The House Ways and Means Committee had voted to make the thousands of pages of federal returns public in a party-line vote last week, but their release was delayed while staffers redacted sensitive personal information like Social Security numbers from the documents. Friday's release, the culmination of years of legal wrangling and speculation, including both personal and business records. Let's see, the panel's top Republican, Kevin Brady of Texas, called the release of documents unprecedented. We'll be talking about that. The returns show in 2020, Donald and Melania Trump reported $78 million in gross income from 16 foreign countries, including the UK, Canada, Ireland, and St. Martin, where Trump has properties. The gross income also includes a reported $1.2 million from other countries, abbreviated as OC, as they were not specified. There was some surprising income on the 2020 returns, which was prepared by a different accounting firm than in the prior years. Trump reported earning $133,173 from an unspecified book, but paid a ghostwriter $44,201 leaving him about $89,000 in income. Melania, meanwhile, reported earning $3,868 from modeling in 2020, with expenses of $3,868 completely offsetting the income. He didn't pay enough taxes. That's what this boils down to. Let's talk about the reaction to this. A dangerous new political weapon. House Republicans lay out dissent on Democrats releasing Trump taxes. Coming from Ben Zieslaught over at the Daily Wire. Republican members of the House Ways and Means Committee blasted Democratic colleagues for publishing the tax returns of former President Trump. The powerful body voted along party lines last week to release the tax returns after the Supreme Court spurned the former Commander-in-Chief's request to bar the IRS from giving the records to lawmakers. The documents, redacted to withhold sensitive information such as Social Security numbers, cover the years 2015 to 2020 and include both individual and business returns. A minority report released for the first time on Friday by Republican lawmakers said the action from their colleagues establishes that lawmakers can release the tax returns of any given private citizen. And that's the important part. I think Grant just touched on that too over in the chat. Committee Republicans are concerned that this politically motivated action unleashes a dangerous new political weapon for reaching far beyond the former president and overturns decades of privacy protections for average Americans, the report said. Going forward, the new precedent is that the chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee and the Senate Finance Committee have nearly unlimited power to target and make public the tax returns of private citizens, political enemies, business or labor leaders, and even Supreme Court justices. And they are going to do that too, by the way. I would not be surprised if within the next year we see Brett Kavanaugh's tax returns, Amy Coney Barrett's tax returns. I think that's coming. I really do. Trump, who announced a third bid for the White House last month, has also contended the release of his tax records was politically charged. It was, remarking in a Friday statement that the move will lead to horrible things for so many people. Yeah, we've got that one separately. Presidential candidates generally choose to publicize their tax returns, even though doing so is not a requirement for seeking the office. But it kind of is, because if you don't, they're just going to find a way to go back and spread it around anyway. Despite the warnings about the long-term negative consequences, Democrats moved forward anyway, the Minority Report added. This development will simply make our politics more divisive and partisan. Even Democrats will come to regret this, and they may regret it sooner than they think. That sounds like a threat. The report claimed Democrats laid out stringent conditions under which Republican staffers could view tax returns, only permitting them access to documents in an off-site location during business hours. On the first day, Republicans were permitted to conduct their reviews. Democratic officials purportedly failed to properly notify IRS agents of their arrival, leading to significant delays. Republican staffers were allowed to see the completed tax returns, which spanned more than 6,000 pages during a 6-hour window on December 19th before lawmakers voted in an unprecedented disclosure of confidential tax information by Congress. Democrats, among other abuses, allegedly withheld scheduling information regarding a final business meeting on the tax returns despite numerous requests for details. They ultimately scheduled the meeting 5 days before the Christmas holiday. Ways and Means Committee Chairman Richard Neal, who introduced legislation that will require annual audits for the sitting commander-in-chief, insisted that the head of state is no ordinary taxpayer and therefore should be subject to different standards. They hold power and influence unlike any other American, and with great power comes even greater responsibility. Oh, so we are letting Spider-Man make our policy now. Or Uncle Ben, I guess it would have been. But not the one Democrats canceled. Our work has always been to ensure our tax laws are administered fairly and without preference, because at times even the power of a president can loom too large. Yeah, the problem is that's unconstitutional. That is an unlawful search and seizure. Yes, even if it's the president. From MarketWatch, Trump warned sharing his tax returns will lead to horrible things for so many people. From Nicole Lynn Pesci, former president, let's move up to here. The Democrats should have never done it, the Supreme Court should have never approved it, and it's going to lead for horrible things for so many people. That was former President Trump's reactions to his tax returns being made public. The Democratic-controlled U.S. House Ways and Means Committee released 6 years of Trump's tax returns. Yes, we know that. Experts will be looking closely at large business losses reported by Trump that significantly reduced his tax liability. If the IRS couldn't find it, it didn't need to be found. In his statement following the release, Trump countered that Americans' partisan divide will now grow far, far worse. Okay, it's going to be the worst. It's far, far worse. Nothing like this has ever been seen before. The radical left and Democrats have weaponized everything, but remember, this is a dangerous two-way street. What's more, the real estate mogul and former reality TV star turned commander-in-chief suggested the returns will demonstrate his business savvy. Trump and his wife Melania paid $0 in income taxes for 2020, according to a previous report released by the Congressional Joint Committee on Taxation. The Trump tax returns once again show how proudly successful I've been, and how I've been able to use depreciation and various other tax deductions as an incentive for creating thousands of jobs and a magnificent structures and enterprise. It's going to be great. You're going to see it. I'm the greatest president there was. And my tax returns will show it. But that is our friends on the left being big government. We've got one from the Blaze here for you. GOP gets dragged for tweeting that Republicans believe in limited government. Mostly because they don't. From Alex Nitzberg. After more than 24 Republican lawmakers voted in favor of passing a massive omnibus spending package earlier this month, the GOP posted a tweet on Wednesday asserting Republicans believe in limited government. And the lie detector test determined that was a lie. 27 GOP lawmakers, including 18 senators and 9 Republicans in the House, voted in favor of passing the $1.7 trillion monstrosity that ran thousands of pages long. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell was one of the GOP senators who voted in favor of passing the behemoth measure. President Brandon signed it on Thursday. People on social media noticed the irony of Republican National Committee's limited government tweet coming not long after multiple Republicans voted to pass the omnibus. Tell that to Republican politicians who voted for the omnibus, Christina Pushaw tweeted in response to the GOP's post. Which is why y'all voted for the omnibus package, right? Ian Hallworth tweeted. Like the omnibus, do better. Yeah, they're all going and dragging McConnell and the GOP in general over just the omnibus, but there's so many other examples of the GOP being big government. The PPP loan. Involvement in schools. What's another good one? The pronouns game. Or trying to outlaw the pronouns game. The truth is, they're all big government. Republican voters believe in limited government. Republican politicians work with Democrats to make government bigger every single year, Spike Cohen tweeted. Yes, they do. And again, as pointed out, proposed by Republicans, Arizona bill would require teachers to get parents' permission to use students' preferred pronoun. From Greg Wenner over at Fox News. Arizona State Senator John Kavanaugh, a Republican, has introduced a bill that, if approved, would prohibit teachers from referring to students as their preferred pronoun without a parent's consent. Small government, folks, right there. Kavanaugh filed the legislation on December 20th before the legislature reconvenes on January 9th. An employee or independent contractor of a school district or charter school may not knowingly address, identify, or refer to a student who is under 18 years of age by a pronoun that differs from the pronoun that aligns with the student's biological sex, unless the school district or charter school receives written permission from the student's parent. The proposed legislation reads, "That's your small government right there." The bill goes on to read that a school district or charter may not require staff or contractors to refer to a person that differs from their biological pronoun if doing so is contrary to that staff member's or contractor's religious or moral convictions. Now see, that is actually kind of small government. Hey, the government entity can't force you to go back and violate your religious views. But as far as the rest of it, yeah, this is really, really small government stuff. And again, I mean, the pronoun game it's not a big deal. It's basically just coming out here and saying, are you on my team or are you against me? Some teachers are going to believe in it and some teachers are not. End of story. But honestly, I'm going to tell you right now, even if it's completely wrong for Miss Mix K, let's use that for an example, to come out and say, okay, little Sunny is actually a girl, even though that she was little Mikey right before all this here. That's the same kind of compelled speech that led Jordan Peterson to lose his job at the University of Toronto. But first and foremost, the big thing is get your kids out of these damn schools. Get your kids out of these schools. Mayor Pete is in the news. Progressives take aim at booty judge after Southwest fiasco. From Hannah Trudeau. Progressives are turning on their own. Progressives are taking aim at Transportation Secretary Pete Buttplug over the Southwest Airlines holiday travel fiasco that continues to cause mass delays and cancellations across the country, urging further scrutiny of the department's practices. Why does the government have anything to do with this, by the way? Okay, we had to cancel flights for 2 days because the snow made it impossible for planes to take off and land. And we're trying to catch up with flights as fast as we can. Representative Ro Khanna, a leading left-wing lawmaker on Capitol Hill, took to Twitter Thursday to question the Transportation Department's handling of the debacle that left travelers deserted and frenzied and administrative officials scrambling. Nearly 6 months ago, Bernie Sanders and I called for Buttplug to implement fines and penalties on airlines for canceling flights. Why were these recommendations not followed? Well, Mr. Khanna, you are a lawmaker. Making a law is your job. Enforcement is Mayor Pete's job. So if you want to make it a law that an airplane has to take off from a frozen runway and hope for the best, otherwise be facing down fines from the Department of Transportation, that's your job. This mess with Southwest could have been avoided. We need bold action. Khanna, who co-chaired Sanders' 2020 presidential campaign, was referencing a recommendation that the Vermont senator put out in late June, asking department officials to demand airlines compensate travelers for canceled or significantly delayed flights and cover their basic expenses like food and accommodations, which Khanna endorsed. The California liberal, who is on the House Oversight and Reform Committee, has been publicly critical of Buttplug's role in the process and has asked him to use more power to go after what he described in an interview with The Prospect as unfair and deceptive practices by the airline industry. Well, there's that, and there's also making sure that nobody can come up and try to make a new airline to compete with the other ones. If only the big airlines can actually operate. The Southwest episode has caused fury among passengers trying to navigate unusually long flight delays and cancellations with minimum communication from the airline. Scenes of people stranded spread through social media and news outlets highlighting stories of travelers missing out on personal and professional obligations amid the chaos. The problem escalated to the Biden admin, with Buttplug pledging to work towards a solution by talking to the Southwest CEO and other relevant parties. Okay. I have a question. Hi, over here, J. Edgar, Turns Pages Productions. If this was actually such an easy thing to do in the free market, Why weren't Delta and American coming in and saying, oh, no, we can absolutely turn around and get this done. Come spend money with us. Hey, we'll even match their prices. And I know the answer as to why. It's because it's not that easy to do. You actually do have to put planning, foresight, and government regulation into this. And also keep in mind the fact that these other airlines are also catching up with having closed down for 2 days because you couldn't get off the ground. Former Ohio State Senator Nina Turner, oh, here's going to be an intelligent take, another Sanders presidential campaign co-chair and recent House candidate, echoed Khanna's sentiments, while David Sirota, a Sanders ally and left-wing alternative media figure, urged more accountability by mounting pressure on butt plug directly to take stronger action. For months, state law enforcement officials at both parties have been sounding alarms about airlines mistreating their customers, but because of a 4-decades-old federal preemption law, those officials cannot take action to protect consumers, even as airlines have benefited from billions of dollars of government support, and even as federal regulators have refused to use their power. That's, by the way, the other reason that nobody else can come up and compete and make a better airline is because they're being subsidized. The big ones are being subsidized by the government. And even as federal regulators have refused to use their power, Sirota wrote in a note urging signatures linked to his newsletter. So, they big mad at Mayor Pete. And Mayor Pete's going to go take that out on the airline. From CNN, as Southwest Airlines continues to sort out its mess, butt plug is steamed. And we can listen to this one. Like, we know what's happening in the article, but we can listen to Mayor Pete. That's why I included this one. Let's have a listen. Oh, we gotta back it up.
Airlines, did you get any explanation at all for this horrendous meltdown of epic proportions?
Well, meltdown is the right word. This is an unacceptable situation. You look at the number of passengers who are stranded. You look at how hard it is even to get somebody on the phone to address it. From what I can tell, Southwest is unable to locate even where their own crews are, let alone their own passengers, let alone baggage. So I conveyed to the CEO our expectation that they are going to go above and beyond to take care of passengers and to address this. They indicated a number of issues that they're having with systems, legacy systems for managing their schedule and where their crews are. But the bottom line is the rest of the aviation system has been on the road to recovery since the worst days of the storm going into Friday of last week. As of today, as I'm looking at the different airlines, most of them are in the low single digits in terms of cancellation rates, averaging about 5% for all of the other airlines. For Southwest right now, we appear to be north of 70%. So their system really has completely melted down. And I've made clear that our department will be holding them accountable for their responsibilities to customers, both to get them through this situation and to make sure that this can't happen again.
Yeah, you got to learn the lessons of this disaster. Southwest, it's not the other major U.S. airlines, it's Southwest Airlines. What more can you tell us, Mr. Secretary, about that conversation which you had with the CEO of Southwest Airlines, and what is he doing? What are they doing to correct these major issues?
Well, over the course of the last year, as you know, we've seen a number of issues with the different airlines. And in the summer in particular, we pressed them to improve their standard of customer service. They provided commitments in writing, including Southwest, that they would go above the previous level of what you do to take care of customers with things like covering the cost if you get stuck and you need a hotel or a meal, in addition to rebooking you to get you on your way. Now that we have those commitments that were made to us over the summer, we're going to be using that as a tool to hold them accountable. And I made that clear to Southwest leadership. Now, they did, the CEO pledged to me that they will not only meet, but they will exceed the customer service standards and commitments that they have made to us in the past, and that we're in a position to enforce. I also talked with union leadership from the pilots and from the flight attendants. They've made clear that they have been raising the alarm about these issues in their systems for some time, and that this really has to do with decisions and choices in terms of the investments that this airline has made or has failed to make over the years that seem to be catching up to them now. Look, we all understand when you have a major historic storm hitting the system and hitting hubs in every part of the country, we know that that's going to have an effect on the aviation system. But what's really concerning here is that while all of the other parts of the aviation system have been moving toward recovery and getting better each day, it's actually been moving the opposite direction with this airline.
CNN's Carlos Suarez joins.
And if he wasn't big mad enough, we go on to the letter. Take a letter, Chasen. From Fox Business, Pete Buttigieg calls out Southwest Airlines in letter, lays out priorities. From Aislinn Murphy. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttplug criticized Southwest over thousands of flights recently canceled and laid out 4 priorities he has for the airline in a letter Thursday to CEO Bob Jordan. I hope that they get that letter and turn around and tell him to F himself. I really do. Buttigieg called out the volume of flight disruptions experienced by Southwest over Christmas weekend and as this week unacceptable, indicating he thought the weather was not the only reason for the delays and cancellations. He also pointed to problems that have occurred amid disruptions, including Southwest customers who missed time with loved ones during the holidays and those who have been separated from their checked bags for prolonged periods. Peter Ducey obtained the letter. A winter storm that affected large portions of the country prompted Southwest and other major U.S. airlines to delay or cancel flights while many people were traveling for the Christmas holiday, something Buttigieg noted in the letter. Southwest, he suggested, has taken longer than other airlines to return to normal operations, which the Dallas-based carrier anticipates will happen on Friday. Jordan said in a video that the airline's highly complex network was thrown off by the storm, with planes and crew members in dozens of locations out of business, Fox Business previously reported. And now we get the fee-fees. No amount of financial compensation can fully make up for passengers who missed moments with their families that they can never get back. Christmas, birthdays, weddings, and other special events. Oh my God. It's your transportation secretary, folks. That's why it's so critical for Southwest to begin by reimbursing passengers for those costs that can be measured in dollars and cents. The 4 priorities Buttigieg laid out for the airline: getting stranded passengers to their destination safely and quickly, providing or reimbursing passengers for meals, hotels, and ground transportation to or from hotels, promptly refunding affected passengers for the canceled tickets should the passenger not accept alternatives offers such as rebooking, and ensuring the passengers are quickly reunited with their baggage. Well, I mean, if they don't get quickly reunited with it, what was her name? Its name thing from the energy sector. Sam something. He'll get your bags if you don't get reunited with him soon. But he's got his angry eyes in because the progressives called him out. All right. See some numbers starting to pop up here. If you're lurking, do get some of your last minute messages in. We're, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 tabs away from reading what it is that you guys have to say. Ray Epps is back in the news, and by the way, this is going to be a big topic of conversation from the House starting next month. Hope you're ready for that one. Hey, maybe we'll get some answers for that. I'm not hopeful, but maybe we'll get some answers for this. revealed Ray Epps claimed he believed the Capitol was open to the public on January 6th. Don't buy it. From Daniel Chayton. Ray Epps, a mysterious January 6th figure, some theorize to be a federal informant, told congressional investigators he believed the U.S. Capitol was open to the public the day of the riot. The assertion appears in a long-awaited transcript released Thursday by the House January 6th Committee, which released its final report last week. Epps, a self-proclaimed supporter of former President Trump, honk honk, who raised concerns about the 2020 election, honk honk, was asked on January 5th, 2021, video footage showing him urging a crowd to go into the Capitol the next day. Epps said yes when asked if he was under the impression that the Capitol would be open on January 6th, honk honk, the day lawmakers met to certify President Biden's 2020 election victory. He again said yes when the word open in this case was described as like open to visitors, like anyone could walk in. I'm going to tell you right now, if there's a fence up, it's not open, but you knew that already. Asked why he believed the Capitol would be open, Epps contended it was a weekday. When Adam Kinzinger pressed Epps on how he perceived the negative reaction he received from the crowd in response to his call to enter the Capitol, people around him shouted no and chanted Fed, Fed, Fed. Epps contended, I don't think I thought about it all the time, honk honk. Epps also stressed that he thought he followed up by telling the crowd to go to the Capitol peacefully. Epps asserted his actions in those moments were geared towards trying to stop the onset of violence that night, but he conceded what he told the crowd, including what he thought he was saying might get him arrested, amounted to poor choices of words, honk honk. It should have been said, but I said it, Epps testified, honk honk. Speculation about Epps, an Arizona man and former Oath Keeper, yeah, okay, that doesn't make your case, has been stoked by Republican lawmakers and high-profile conservatives, including Fox News host Tucker Carlson. During the interview with the January 6th committee, Epps said the crazy theories that swirled around him made life really, really difficult. He also flatly denied he was acting on behalf of any government agency while in D.C. Honk, honk, honkity, honk, 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 mother effing honk. The only time I've been involved with the government was when I was a Marine in the Marine Corps, he said. Honk diddy honk, honk honk, honk honk honk. The only person who was on the most wanted list, who is on video telling people to go into the Capitol, fell off of the list and mysteriously didn't go into the building himself. Honk honk. Nothing about this seems right. We've got one archived, and this was archived for me already, and actually the article itself doesn't exist anymore, which is, it's a good thing it's archived. But kept on the Wayback Machine from WALB.com. Gun permits no longer required in Georgia and Alabama on January 1st, which I actually thought was already the case. From Anaila Spragues. In just a few days, people in Georgia and Alabama will be able to carry guns without permits. This comes months after governors in both states passed laws ditching the requirement. But without the additional revenue generated from the permit fees, some sheriffs in Alabama are worried. The fees for gun permits help them buy equipment they need. Lee County Sheriff said his office has already seen a decline in revenue for those permits, and now that they're no longer required, even though they're okay financially, he says it could really hurt smaller counties. Not seeing a downside here. January 1st, the Permitless Carry Bill or Constitutional Carry Act will go into effect, meaning those in states like Georgia and Alabama will be able to carry a concealed gun without a permit. Huzzah! And of course, the state is going to try to make this harder and harder for people because they want that money. From ABC, Arizona recount shows Democrat Chris Mays beat Republican Abe Hamada. And by the way, there's the problem with recounts always, because they're just recounting the same ballots that were in question to begin with, but This is from Alexandra Hutzler. Chris Mays is the winner of Arizona's Attorney General race, a state judge announced on Thursday. Mays defeated Republican Abe Hamada by 280 votes after a mandatory recount triggered due to how close they were separated after the initial tally in November, when Mays led by roughly 500 votes out of 2.5 million cast. Maricopa Superior Judge Timothy Thomason unveiled the results of the recount in a hearing on Thursday. Excuse me. May's lead from November was nearly halved in the recount. The results showed she had 1,254,809 votes to Hamada's 1,254,529 votes. May's victory is another win for Democrats this midterm cycle against candidates who, the big lie, and oh my god, election denialism, and oh my, look, evil Donald Trump. Just basically the breakdown of the editorialization here. I will say it once again, I'm thankful to everyone who took their time to vote, and democracy is truly a team sport. May said after the results were announced, I'm thankful for my campaign, transition, and legal teams. I'm excited to get to work as your next Attorney General and vow to be your lawyer for the people. Onward. And by that I mean, of course, for the people that agree with me. The rest of you are on your own. Abe Hamada releasing a statement about this. We went into our first election lawsuit with a deficit of 511. We will now be entering another lawsuit down 280. A recount simply puts the ballots back through the machine. Our argument has always been that there are undervotes and overvotes that will put us over the top. Well, we'll see. This one being close enough, I would actually be interested to see how this goes. And having an AG be the opposite party of the governor, I think is even better. Let me do this one first, and then we'll read the Daily Mail article. Richie Torres, who is, by the way, a New York 15 congressman, born and bred in the Bronx, product of public housing, fighting for people whose struggles were my own. Tweets out, big news! I'm introducing a bill that requires candidates to disclose under oath their employment, educational, and military history so we can punish candidates who lie to voters about their qualifications. This will be called the acronyms: the Stop Another Non-Truthful Office Seeker Act, or the Santos Act. Why? Because of course it is. Meanwhile, Elizabeth Warren, AOC, Richard Blumenthal, Joe Biden, well, not Joe Biden because he doesn't know what's going on, but the people who are holding Joe Biden's strings are all quaking in their boots. Let's read from the Daily Mail. Democrat launches Santos Act, short for Stop Another Non-Truthful Office Seeker, to punish candidates for lying about background after George Santos faked working at Goldman Sachs, attending college, and family history. From Stephen M. Lepore. Democrat Congressman Richie Torres has introduced a bill directly targeting Long Island liar and Representative-elect George Santos. Torres, a fellow New Yorker, is bluntly calling it the Santos Act, which stands for Stop Another Non-Truthful Office Seeker. Which, I mean, that's fine because that will clear out probably a good 2/3 of Congress. And I'm here for that. In a tweet on Friday, Torres says the bill would require candidates to disclose under oath their employment, educational, and military history, so we can punish candidates who lie to voters about their qualifications. Santos' background, education, history, and even ethnicity have been called into question in the 10 days after a story by the New York Times, a former newspaper, was published, revealed he'd lied about having worked for Citigroup and Goldman Sachs. CNN reported late Wednesday that the New York Republican never attended the $59,800 a year Horace Mann School, an elite private school in the Bronx. Additionally, newly resurfaced tweets show how Santos, who's Brazilian-American, seemingly lied about having Jewish heritage. It was an honor to address fellow members of the Jewish community, he tweeted, alongside a picture of the rabbi. Tonight I joined Rabbi Lau, the chief Ashkenazi rabbi of Israel. So, here's the deal. And again, if we remove serial liars from Congress, that will probably take out a good 2/3 of both chambers, the presidency, which I'm here for. I'm okay with that. And I think a lot of this, especially with having it being the Santos Act, is sour grapes over the fact that one of them got caught. And now everybody else is going to be looking at the rest of these jackasses with scrutiny. Popcorn, anybody? All right, 2 more. From the New York Post, rather, not the New York Times. Ex-stripper mom of Hunter Biden's child wants kid to have powerful last name. Yes, this is a real news article from Jesse O'Neill. The mother of Hunter Biden's love child has asked an Arkansas court to legally change the 4-year-old girl's last name to Biden so the child can benefit from the family's presidential lineage. Dude, if I was a Biden, related to them or not, I would be scrambling to change my name away. London Roberts, 31, filed 4 motions Tuesday in connection with a paternity case against Hunter, which was reopened in September when the first son asked the court to lower his child support payments. Attorney Clinton Lancaster told an Independence County court that Navy Joan Roberts would benefit from carrying the Biden family name, which he said was now synonymous with being well-educated, successful, financially acute, and politically powerful. No, it's synonymous with getting a lot of favors from the Uniparty. The filings, which the Post has seen, were originally reported by the Northwest Arkansas Democrat Gazette. Neither Hunter, the first son, lobbyist turned painter, nor the child's grandfather, President Biden, have ever met young Navy. According to her mother, the week's filings said the first family remained estranged from the child. Of course they did, because otherwise they're going to get caught. To the extent this estrangement is misconduct or neglect, it can be rectified by changing her last name to Biden so that she may undeniably be known to the world as the child of the defendant and the member of the prestigious Biden family. Lancaster wrote. The first son, who shares 3 adult daughters with ex-wife Kathleen Bewley and a 2-year-old son with second wife Melissa Cohen Biden, settled with Roberts in 2020 after a DNA test confirmed he had fathered Navy. Kid, I'm going to tell you this right now. You're probably never going to see this, but kid, you have received the greatest blessing in the world, not having your father's last name. Alright, and the last one. A bunch of sour grapes from our friends over at CNN. Somebody on Twitch throw up the CNN logo, if you've got it. Tradwives promote a lifestyle that evokes the 1950s, but their nostalgia is not without controversy. Let those tears flow from Harmeet Kaur of CNN. On certain corners of the internet, a segment of women is exhibiting a nostalgia for an era it has never known. These millennials, Zoomers, glamorize the aesthetics of the 1950s Americana, donning retro-fit and flare dresses, and posting vintage illustrations of aproned housewives placing dinner on the table. Their politics, too, harken back to the post-World War II boom, at least for those who were straight, white, and middle... Of course, CNN's got to put that one in there. Straight, white, and middle class. In their ideal society, men are the providers, women are the homemakers, and the nuclear family is the holy grail. These young women belong to a small subculture called tradwives. Short for traditional wives, tradwives aren't your average stay-at-home moms. They sneer at what they consider to be modern-day feminism, with its girl bosses and its ungratifying grind, and wax lyrical about the value of traditional gender roles. Crucially, they promote submission to one's husband and sometimes evoking fundamentalist Christian principles in their beliefs. As tradwives showcase their idyllic, domesticated lives on social media, implicit is the message that today's women and girls are being red-pilled by the feminist movements that promise to liberate them, and that true security and fulfillment can be achieved by reverting to certain norms of the past. Tradwives are a fringe subculture. In the grand scheme of internet phenomena, tradwives are a fringe group. Online mentions of tradwives go at least as far back as 5 years, but 2020 saw a noticeable uptick in usage of the term. According to Deborah Etienne, a data analyst and researcher for the social media marketing agency Brandwatch, the tradwife discourse continued to grow in 2022 as tradwife content across social media increased and media outlets subsequently covered the trend. But while Etienne found that 152,000 mentions of tradwives across Tumblr, Twitter, Reddit, forums, and blogs over the last year, negative mentions overwhelmingly outnumbered positive ones, suggesting a strong backlash is present too. Alright, here is my take on this. And again, it's probably going to stand contrary to some people off of this. For a lot of people, the tradwife phenomenon is going to be a good thing, but also keep in mind that our friends on the left have damaged and destroyed the economy to a point where most households, especially in my income range, can't go back out and live the American dream and buy that house and live on without having two working parents in them. It's just not a thing anymore. You can go back and try the tradwife thing if you want to. What is going to matter the most is a good discussion about the financials and the life making of both parties involved and what's going to work the best for both of them. That's how it's always been. That's how it always will be. I grew up in a very trad family, except for the fact that my mom can't cook to save her life, which is part of the reason that I learned how to. But she can do a lot of the other household chores better than most people I know. My friends and my sister's friends, this is funny to think about, used to bring stuff over to our house to get washed so their parents wouldn't kill them if it got dirty or ruined or things. Because my mom can get stains out of crap that you can't even begin to imagine. You want a clean house and a clean kitchen on not a lot of chemicals? Go talk to my mom. Good God, it's just she never got the bug for cooking. There was definitely an aspect of the traditional lifestyle to it, though. But my mom waiting tables to make sure that she could be there for us when we were growing up, for the most part, but still having to be in the workforce because of, again, the exploding cost of everything, a la Bill Clinton, but also a little bit of a Jimmy Carter that came before it. But she could also brag about the fact and be right that, in a small tourist town, she could wait tables and on. It wasn't an all-the-time thing, obviously, but on holiday weekends, she always chose to work because she, and I quote, made more than my dad on those weekends, who was the breadwinner of the family. And by the way, I've seen the financials of the household, and that's absolutely true. That is absolutely 100% true, that she was making, on just those select weekends, more than my dad. They found the niche and the average that worked for them. For some people, the tradwife thing is going to be that. I know Jessica Green, their family, she's the tradwife, and it works out well for them. I know it doesn't work out quite as well for my friend Britt, who, while being mostly trad mom, trad wife, still does go out on her own entrepreneurial ventures, and very successful with them too. She's very good at what she does. But as far as it goes, the most important thing is not to go back and do what the world expects you to do. It is do the best that you can to make sure that you bring more little based babies into the world. And yes, there are going to be situations where daddy stays home with the kids, or there are going to be situations where mommy makes more than daddy. It's all going to be what works out best for your household. It's all individualist. The general trends are going to lean towards the man being the breadwinner, obviously, but that's a generality. You need to sit down with your household finances and figure out what works best for you. And that's the end of the story. And with that, we've come to the end of the program, and we're going to be looking at some of your live chat as well. Still a little bit slow right now because still trying to ease into that niche of the new time slot. But I mean, I'm seeing numbers of people that I used to see in the first few months of Contemporary too. We didn't really start taking off Contemporary, by the way, until we were almost a year into it. I looked back through the old notebook. I found the old notebook and looked at the names and saw how many people were chatting. And like, we did not take off until the first year. So I am expecting, I think we're actually doing a little bit better because I can see the counter number on the chat window over here. And I think we are doing better than we were 3 weeks in Contemporary in the morning show with no competition. So the word is getting out there and we're actually doing better here. But we will have a look at here for Monday. A little bit of a slow week for most of the week, but still a thankful to everybody else out here. On Monday, our top chatters were A. Gaines P., Luke Wee, and Grant. Tuesday was our busy day of the week. We had Ron Helton, Highleaf 11. That was the day, by the way, we started really late because the internet was wigging the F out. Highleaf 11, A. Gaines P., Luke Wee. Beat Me Up Mr. Scott, who is, I guess, in here again today, too. Welcome in. Wyatt of The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, Randy Krishtaga, and Jopper9. Wednesday, we had one chatter, and it was my friend Grant. Thank you, Grant, with that. On Thursday, Ron Helton, A. Gaines P., and Mr. Scott. And today, let's look in and see what some of the things you guys are saying. Today, it's going to be most of the things you guys are saying. By the way, Grant, how did you get the triple brackets in YouTube? Typically, they censor that. All right. Ron Helton. Most of these damn politicians lie and lie and lie and lie. Yes, they do. Grant is the who is they in the title. Well, I was referring to the government, but I know that you have somebody else that you're referring to. Mostly because of what I do when I'm in your live chat. Or your Discord chat, rather. Grant says, today he reads the chat, right? Yeah, that's today. For better or for worse, let's see how bad you guys did. And I've been keeping an eye on most of it. Let's see. Ron Helton says, there's no way the market is that high. They're manipulating the markets. Well, no, it's actually inflationary mostly. Because the points that you see on the market are representative of dollars. Ron Helton says, we cleaned out 8 storage units this week. That's more than twice what we normally clean out. So apparently, Ron Helton is a storage unit cleaner. He's a Storage Wars guy. The economy is going into crapper. Ron Helton says, so basically he took all the exemptions for his company that he was allowed. I'm sure it was the accountants and not Trump who looked for the appropriate deductions. That's also very fair, by the way. Which I'm sure that there was at least a pressure campaign of, okay, I don't like paying taxes because I don't like the government, so make sure I get all of the best stuff, okay? All the best. Make sure it's all there in order. Make my tax bill low. I'll check back with you in 2 weeks, okay? Ron says, and why does it have to be charitable? How is that their damn business? I'm sick of these a-holes. They don't respect property rights or privacy. Well, that's the key for taxable donate or tax exemption for donation is that it has to be charitable. It has to go to an authorized 501c3 so they can track it. Whether or not you think that's right, that's the standard that they put by. Ron Helton, taxation is thefts. Sick of these damn commies. Get rid of 98% of the government and there will be zero need for income tax. That's fair. Grant says, this is dumb. Income does not equal wealth. Surprise! Surprise! When you tax income, it doesn't tax wealth. Surprise Pikachu face. Yeah, unless you liquidate an asset. Ron says, that's how you know these complainers are commies. They don't respect people's right to own things. There are large corporations that when they have a major expansion, they will pay zero in taxes because all the expenditures for that year, that's not uncommon. That and the fact that usually, especially when there's a major expansion, the local government is trying to subsidize them expanding so they bring the jobs back into the locality. There's also that. Grant says the tax returns show nothing. The big problem that I have is how they were obtained and released. All this really showed is your tax returns aren't private and they can make them public when they want. And yes, that was one of the other backlashes the Republicans did as well. Ron says, yeah, which is BS because our income and property should be kept private. We have to end this hashtag mafia government. It's not constitutional. And Grant points out correctly, the Republicans are losers. They'll whine about it, but they won't do anything about it. That's correct. You are 100% correct about that. Beam me up, Mr. Scott is here. Welcome in, beam me up, Mr. Scott. Ron, what I have to say is not printable. Blind Fear is here. Hi, Ed and Ron. Welcome, everybody. Hi. 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 Ron Helton says, evening, Blind Fear. And says, if I'm late in responding, it's because I have company. Yeah, Torres proposed a law that would punish Biden, who lies constantly about his education qualifications. That's correct. Ron Helton says, here's a cleaning tip. A bar of Zote soap, which I would have to check and see if I'm allergic to or not. Because usually if it's bar soap, I can only use Zest. I'm a little bit more forgiving with laundry soap than my dad's. My dad can only use Tide laundry soap, and that is it. I can't use Dove. I know that for bar soap because the moisturizer makes me break out. It's great for getting out a lot of stains in clothes. Just rub it on the spots before you throw the item in the washing machine. Ron says, I have an older jacket that I wear for working on vehicles. When I had to change my starter, the jacket got some oil on it, and the Zote soap took it right out. Mr. Scott, I'm glad I behaved today. Oh yes, I've seen some good stuff come out of Mr. Scott. Ron Helton says, I try real hard to be good. Sometimes I have to slap my hands when typing. Mr. Scott says, I'm trying to put some optimism into my life, even if I gotta fake it a bit. Ron Helton points out perfectly, if your accountant doesn't look for all the deductions to cut your tax bill, it's time to look for another accountant. I have probably one of the best accountants in the state, and it's the reason that I still go to Kenosha to get my taxes done. In spite of the fact that I haven't lived there, and this will be my 9th year not living there, I still go there to get my taxes done. Because I had somebody else do them once, and I wound up paying in. Well, I paid in with Falana too, but with Falana it was $10. When I went to this other outfit, I came out with a $400 tax bill. I'm like, no, we ain't doing that crap again. Grant tells us, Happy New Year, everybody. And Ron Helton says, yeah, there are only 2 visitors left. I'll probably go to a New Year's Eve party that I was invited to tomorrow. Well, congratulations. There'll be no contemporary tomorrow, so there's that. But yes, with that, we're done. We're out of here. It's the end of 2022 for contemporary. Let's kill this music out here. Yes, we are done. It's over. Contemporary is done for the year. On a Friday, of course. So, thanks everybody who came by and chatted in the live chat. It is New Year's Eve here. It's 8 o'clock on the night before New Year's Eve. So, thanks everybody who came by. Everybody be safe. Have a good New Year. If you've got to get a DD, get a DD. There are plenty of Ubers out there that I know they're going to be making extra money on that night. So, make sure you guys are all doing that if that is the case. Otherwise, we will reconvene here on Monday night at 6 p.m. After this week, I will start looking into getting back onto the schedule and finishing off Legend of Zelda, by the way. I realized last night that I've not played video games, I think, since I moved here. Well, I've played mobile games, but I've not sat down and done video games. Luke Wee, getting a last message in here. Thanks for that. Luke Wee says, night, Happy New Year all. So, yeah, thank you for that. Definitely. It's been an interesting year. We've seen a lot of good, a lot of bad, a lot of ups, and a lot of downs. A nice big change in my life coming up in the midst of this as I realized that I wasn't going to make it in the Biden economy, being where I was, and hopefully getting some new community coming in of that as well. I hope 2023 brings you as much good fortune as my 2022 did. Definitely hope that you have a very, very good year. I hope you did have a good year this year as well, and everything works out well for you. We will see you here back on January 2nd, 2023 for more news, more headlines, and more contemporary at 6 p.m. Central Time. Definitely looking forward to that. Take care. Go check out Porch Boys. Go check out Daily Ignoramus. Go check out Tweets by Brit. R-Rated Conservative if he comes back. Breakdown with Breckenhoff if he comes back. Don't Give Us Podcast. Mr. Behavior. We will see you here next time. And until then, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.